Here on the workbench, got my OdenWolf W3. OdenWolf gets a lot right with their knives. Comfortable handle, good blade shape, excellent sheath, good knife steel at a very budget-friendly price. Now they have come out with a mini version of their W series, the OdenWolf W Mini. Let's take a look at it. As always, they got their packaging right, looks nice. Open it up, you've got some information, coupon code, and then the knife itself. And you can see it is much smaller than their W series. Similar blade shape, you can tell it's definitely inspired from the big brother, but it is quite a bit smaller. Going after that neck knife slash fixed blade EDC realm. So that's a nice 90-degree spine, hollow ground blade in D2. You can see this older model here. They've switched completely away from their 440C and gone to all D2 steel. I will say, for a knife like this, I probably prefer 440C. Give me a little bit less edge retention, but a whole lot more corrosion resistance. But honestly, D2, 440C, they're both great choices for knives like these. And again, with the OdenWolf, they've got a very comfortable handle. It just locks in. Good texturing here. It's kind of that soft touch, rubberized grip. Never gets sticky on you. It doesn't ever have that. Sometimes, like if you have a Hogue grip on your gun, and they can kind of get sticky on you if you got it on your skin. Your shirt will kind of stick to it. These are just hard enough where that never occurs. So it's a good balance between grip, but it's not so sticky that it's going to start attracting lint and dirt and stuff like that inside the handle. Very comfortable. I like their grip texturing here for sure. Additionally, OdenWolf makes a nice sheath. These Kydex sheaths always have a great click. This one, the retention on it is very nice. If you wear this as a neck knife, you're never going to worry about this wobbling out. Zero wobble, you can shake it until your heart's content. No rattling whatsoever. It's got a very positive engagement. Nice thumb ramp here to aid in accessing that blade. On the back of the sheath, you've got a little bit of a pocket clip. Now, I will say, the weight of this knife is all weighted at the handle. So a large section of mass on the handle, very small amount of weight on the blade. And so if you can have this on your belt, it is going to have a bit of wobble on you right here for sure, because there's so much mass above the belt line. I have worn this for just briefly, and it's not horrible. It's not like it's the most uncomfortable thing at all, but it absolutely has a bit of wobble to it, just because all of the weight is above that belt line, and typically you want more weight below the belt line for a more comfortable carrying experience. But it definitely clips on there. The engagement is nice. It's not going to fall off on you. But I think they're more gearing this towards the neck knife slash pack knife, and that's definitely where it excels. Now looking at the W3, it does have this excellent ferro rod, great for starting fires, and they included one with the W Mini Series, which is actually a really cool perk. This is the lanyard that comes with the knife, and as you can see, you have this ferro bead and the striker. Now, the striker, in my opinion, is superfluous. It's pretty unnecessary. You have the ability to use the spine. They have a great 90-degree spine on these knives. And with this harpoon blade shape, I like to use this nook right there for striking. And so with this, you can take the bead, hold it like this right here. It's very stable. Stick that crook of the harpoon blade shape in there and strike away, and it will throw a really nice spark. The teeth on this are pretty aggressive. They do spark very nicely, but again, I think relatively unnecessary. Extra weight. If it were me, I'd probably ditch the striker. This is if I'm going to use this as a lanyard for a neck knife on the sheath. There's no need for it to have this striker whatsoever. You have a perfectly good striker using the spine of your knife. As far as ergonomics go, now I have relatively wide hands. not horribly long, but this section right here is quite wide. So for me, this is a essentially a 3.5 grip, 3.5 finger grip. Now, if it were me and I were designing this knife, I would have made this handle just a touch shorter and just made this a 3 finger knife. I think it would have served the blade length better. It would have been a little bit more proportional. And if you're going for that neck knife vibe, it would be a little more comfortable, a little bit less weight around your neck to have a little bit shorter handle. Still be fully functional. I think a 3 finger grip on this would give you all the traction that you need. And then on the spine, where there's no jimping, they don't include any jimping. But if you're going for this pinch grip here, which I often do, I find very comfortable, and it gives a nice amount of leverage behind that blade. One thing that OdenWolf does with all of their knives is, to me, this section needs to be more flat. The guard is almost too pronounced on the rear section on the spine of the blade, and it just makes a little bit of an uncomfortable purchase point for your thumb. It kind of doesn't want, you don't know if you want to put it, way up here where it's a little bit out of that ergonomic section. For me, I want it to be right here, but then I'm kind of left teeter-tottering on this section of the guard here. So I wish this were a little bit more flat, a little bit less pronounced, and that would allow my thumb to lock into this part right here comfortably where I want to hold the knife. And funnily enough, on their larger blades, it's essentially the same thing. Where they have a little bit of jimping on the back here, and it's not quite as bad, but I wish that this section were just a little bit flatter. You can see how it ramps back that way. If they would have flattened that area out, it would have been a more comfortable knife for me personally. And then it's still just exacerbated on this W Mini. It's even more out there where my thumb is just, it wants to teeter-totter. I wish that were a little bit flatter. It would have made it a more comfortable blade for me. Moving on from the handle, take a look at this blade. Previously, I did mention the harpoon blade shape, and very slightly harpooned here. Generally, the harpoon is a little more distal to the point. This one right at the edge there almost looks like a cutout for your thumb, little thumb ramp. Again, a little jimping back there would not have been a bad idea to give you just a bit more traction there. But it is a great drop point classic blade shape. Very nice. It is very belly heavy, isn't it? Tiny bit of flat here, essentially from this section down to the choil, but the vast majority of this blade is all belly. The more I handle this knife, the more I think it would make a very decent skinning knife. It has a large, fatty grip on it that's going to be very comfortable, especially when it gets wet. It's not going to slip on you. And then this large sweep on the blade, all that belly, is going to work nicely in a skinning application. This would be a great little bird and trout knife. You could even handle skinning a deer. The edge on it is very nice, pretty sharp. Grabbing your paper test is always telling. But it slices effortlessly through the paper. That's just me trying to get silly. Slice is nice. Trying to get a really small shaving here. Nah, it's very sharp. Very sharp indeed. It does get a little sloppy. You can see towards the choil. Thickens out. Thins out here on the flat. A little uneven on the belly. And then real steep at the point. And honestly, a steep secondary bevel at the point is never a bad thing as long as it's sharp, and this one is. Just leaves a little bit more meat on that tip so it doesn't thin out quite as much and get brittle on you. Not a bad secondary bevel on this knife whatsoever. There you have it, the OdenWolf W Mini. Cool little knife. They also make the OdenWolf W Mini 2. What's the difference? Nah, it's not the color. You can get either of these knives in black or green. It's not the handle or the sheath because those, again, are identical. It is simply the blade shape. And this one here, straight spine and Scandi ground. And I must say, if I were to choose between the Mini or the Mini 2, give me the Mini 2. because it can do everything that knife can do, but now it is going to be a significantly better carving knife. And honestly, as a little whittling blade, this thing is awesome. Great for carving small little projects, spoons, spatulas, face carvings. This one is actually a very comfortable and competent carving knife. I like it a lot in that regard. The Scandi blade, that grind just is so predictable through soft wood. I'm surrounded by juniper and pines, and it just is a pleasure to use in that application. I typically am not a huge fan of hollow ground knives unless I'm doing food prep. That hollow grind, like concave area here behind the edge, it gets out of the way of all the material, which is nice and lets that blade slice through cleanly. But when you're starting to work with wood or harder materials, you can kind of wobble and deflect in areas that aren't quite as ideal in that scenario. I try to do a feather stick between a hollow ground knife and a Scandi knife, and it is just going to be infinitely easier with the Scandi ground. This is like a chisel and it's just predictable, tractor straight through. Very nice to use for wood carving, and honestly, this is a great little wood carving knife. So, if it were me, I'd spring for the W2, W Mini 2 rather. Much cooler little blade. Again, same sheath. It's got your ferro rod and your striker. Ditch the striker, don't need that. Still has that 90-degree bevel on here that is going to strike better than that little toothy thing, but this is cool. I like this one a lot more. As far as competition goes, there's not a whole lot on the table. $20 is a great price for these. I think you're getting a lot for the money. Very comfortable knife, great sheath, a fire starter. At $20, it's a great deal. And I know that OdenWolf has a really good warranty. I'll put a link down below for both of these, whether you want to buy it on Amazon or I've got a 20% off coupon for their website as well, and they have free shipping on at OdenWolf.com. So take a look at those if you're interested. Now, competition-wise, I'm trying to think. The only thing I've got on hand is this Mora. Again, it's kind of in that same vibe where you've got a large handle and a relatively small diminutive blade. And I will say the texturing on this is just hard plastic. I prefer the OdenWolf texturing. I prefer the OdenWolf sheath. One thing I will say is that if you're going to utilize this in a pinch grip, see, Mora gets it right. Their knives, they don't have any lip right here on the spine. And you can see, obviously, they've got the shelf here between the overmolded grip and the blade itself, and that's just to be expected. But it's not a hindrance for your thumb. You can put your thumb anywhere you want, and it just lays there comfortably. So I much prefer that on this. The guard on the Mora is a little pronounced. You probably don't need quite so much guard there. And I gotta say, this is just an ugly knife. I think this thing probably floats. It looks like a boat. Not my favorite looking knife on this. The aesthetics leave a lot to be desired. These little guys look a lot better. But honestly, you can't talk too much crap about the Mora. They make great blades at the price point. Which one would I rather have? Obviously, this is a little bit bigger knife, so if I'm looking for a one knife fits all, I'd go this route. Since I have larger knives, and if I were looking more of a neck knife slash fixed blade EDC, I would definitely go with the OdenWolf. These guys are a little more universal. They've got a little more utility to them. You can use them as a belt knife. You can use it as a neck knife. Much more concealable if necessary. Fit in a pack nicely. I like these guys a lot. So if you're in the market for a new little fixed blade EDC or neck knife, give these a look out. Be hard pressed to find something better for $20. Thanks again for watching, guys. Take care.